guys going to?
Yeah. Ready to keep on you.
I need to read the statement. Adequate notice of this meeting has been given in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act pursuant to Public Laws 1975, Chapter 231. This agenda is complete to the extent known and was sent to the Trenton Times and the Trentonian newspapers, posted on the first floor bulletin board in City Hall, and filed in the city clerk's office. Formal action will be taken. Roll call, Lourdes.
Councilman Blakely.
Present.
Councilwoman Caldwell-Wilson.
Present.
Councilman Harrison.
Present.
Councilman Houston.
Present.
Councilman Rodriguez.
Present.
Councilwoman Vaughn.
Present.
Council President McBride.
Present. So the first thing on the agenda is the fiscal year 2020 ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits. And so Mr. Cruz wants to speak to the body in reference to that. This ordinance has been voted down twice. And I had expressed to Mr. Cruz that the body wanted to remain at the 2% cap. Mr. Cruz wants to share with you guys why he feels as though it should be increased.
Good evening, council members. Adam Cruz, Business Administrator. Madam President and council members, the reason for me asking to introduce this ordinance for the first reading today is actually because the city, in order for us to be able to increase the expenditure for this, I apologize.
Get your gear on. Gear up.
Yeah,
Put the fire out.
So in order for us to spend beyond 2% from last year's budget, which was $215 million, and we want to spend more than 2% for this year, we would need to have an ordinance that would allow us to exceed the 2% statewide cap that they have for all municipalities. This ordinance will actually allow us to exceed that 2% cap to a 3.5%. And the reason of my asking is that we are actually introducing a very aggressive budget that increases spending by more than 2% than last year. This doesn't necessarily, I know some of you are concerned about increasing taxes. This ordinance does not create that. This is actually, this ordinance is actually to be able to spend above 2% from last year's. You're concerned about taxes, yes, I get it. We're all concerned about taxes, but this is not that ordinance. Down the line, if there's a need to increase taxes, it's a separate ordinance that will have to be passed by this body. This is only for us to spend above the 2%. As I mentioned, we have a very aggressive budget for this year. The budget is going from 214,000 to, I think it's 238. So it's more than 2%. 232.8. I'm sorry. So it exceeds the 2%. So this is why it is important that we allow it. Should the state decide that we're going to be receiving more money, either transitional aid or capital city aid, we're not going to have the means to spend above 2% if we were to receive that extra funding.
And so my position is so that the body will know, my position is that the legal guidelines is a 2% cap. The 1.5% cap allows us to spend more money. What I am saying is that the administration needs to curtail its spending, and so I am not in favor of raising that cap no more than the 2% that it is already. What I suggested to the administration last year was to find a way to cut costs and do something to help get the city in some type of fiscal shape. But we haven't looked at any new ideals, we haven't did anything moving forward from the last year's budget to put the city in a better position. I think that the 2% is as great as it should be. I don't think that we should go to the 3.5%. I expressed that to DCA yesterday. All of the council members here received my letter, along with the BA, along with the attorney, Mr. Morelli, and with DCA. So the 3.5% cap gives the administration the ability to spend more money, which I don't believe you should spend any more money. I believe that you should try to get this city in some type of fiscal shape, because we're in bad shape. We're bonded out over 3%. We get 3% bonds. We're at 6% on the bonds that we take out. You know, we're overspent in everything that we do, and I just think that it would be best for the taxpayers in the city if we could pull back on some of the spending. That's my take. Councilwoman Paula Wilson. Okay.
Last year, I remember that they don't even mention these cap things last year. They stuck us with 11 cents increase in the budget, and then afterwards they came up with the additional 7 cents, and they made it 18 cents. At that time, I didn't understand what was going on, but they were using the ordinance or the resolution from the past year. This resolution is going to be for 2 years, if I am not mistaken. It's good for 2 years. So last year, we didn't get to go through this process. So that's why I was asking you, where did the 7 cents come from?
It was adopted last year. Yeah, I thought it
It
was
was also adopted last year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but this year is not going to go by. I'm going to vote no to this. No, it's going to be 7 cents. It says it here. It's going to be 7 cents. 7 cents more. No?
So
Besides
No.
whatever,
yeah.
because I have questions also about this $25 million in transitional aid. Last year I think we received 5.7 million. So it was supposed to be 6, but there was a penalty. Not to city council. Somebody got penalized in the city, and they took $260,000 out. I doubt it. I wish they would give us the $25 million, but I doubt it. And then we'll have to, I believe that was a huge mistake to put $25 million in that. It's unrealistic. We are dealing with the state, we are dealing with DCA. From 5.7 million to 25 million, I don't.
Oh, so, yes, so the reason why there's a $25 million increase that we requested from transitional aid is actually because, as I was mentioning to the council president, the city has been asking for, last year, the city also asked for $25 million. We got $6 million. We're asking again for $25 million, because the needs of the city, continue to increase. We need road repairs, we need more police officers, we need firefighters. And for us just to say, yes, we don't need to spend above the cap, because, we have no need for it. I think, it's almost like giving up on the city. So, we can always request additional funding from the state If the state comes back and says, you know, we don't agree with the $25 million, or we don't get the additional capital CDA money that the mayor is having conversations with the governor's office, if that doesn't happen, then the administration will come back and do budget amendments to reflect those numbers once we hear from them.
I think that the mayor and administration have been very disingenuous in talking publicly about us increasing the police force and adding all these additional things to our budget when we don't have the money. So now we're playing a shell game based on promises, not on written authorization that we will be receiving certain money. So you want us to give you the authority to increase this cap so you can spend more money that we actually don't have. We can't afford to do it. And I have a real problem with that, because what's going to happen is we have a budget that has all of that in it that we have to accept. So if we cut it out, then we're going to be the target of saying, because of council we didn't get any more police, because of council we can't do these projects in various areas, because of council, that has to stop. We should get a budget that we can manage, and a budget that we can come to the table and agree on, not a budget that has all these little loopholes. We don't even have all the information actually in this budget that we need. So we can't look through this and we can't say new hires, new fires. We can't, I mean, this is,
It's there.
it's piecemeal.
This is there, but
No,
when if we're gonna hire
the
somebody, it says
employee-
new hire.
None of the names are in there or who's in the departments. That should be in there. This is a governing body. We have the right to know that. So, you know, this is, you know, I mean, I understand your job is very tough, and I know the mayor wants to be able to get into the revenues and spend more money and do more things in the city. But realistically speaking, when we're over the cap on our bonding, we are now creating a huge debt. If we don't get that additional funding from the state, we are now increasing that additional debt for the kids that are growing up right now that are going to have to bear that burden. And this city is going to be a ghost city. So I think that we need to be.
The capital budget is totally separate from operating budget. So what you have in front of you right now is the operating budget. If we don't get the $25 million, that doesn't mean that our bonding is going to increase to provide services that are in front of you for the operating budget.
No, I was just giving you the overall picture of our total indebtedness. Because
I
the
just wanted to
bonds
clear
are
that for the
debt.
record.
You know, but I mean, it's a tough pill to swallow with this budget, and I'll be happy to go through it with you all, but it's really difficult for me to say, yeah, I want to increase that.
Yeah. One of the things that we're asking for the council is to actually support the budget, because it is something that we keep going back and, in circles and saying we need for the state to give us more. We're asking, we're providing you a balanced budget based on needs that the city currently has and has had for the last decade.
This is not a balanced budget. We don't have the resources to balance this budget.
The budget in front of you is a budget that reflects a $25 million transitional aid application. The state has yet to say no to us or say that we're only getting $5 million to $6 million. As I mentioned earlier, if the state comes back and says you're only receiving this much, the administration will then introduce a budget amendment based on what we
Mr.
hear
Cruz,
from the state.
That's not so, because once you introduce this budget tonight and we accept it,
It's
it's
ours.
ours. So what is the administration gonna come back and say? The budget belongs to us once you introduce it
Well,
and we accept
And
it.
once
It's to
We,
the
if
point-
we approve this budget here tonight, the budget is the council's. So when you say go back to the administration, that's not a fair assessment, Mr. Cruz, and you know that.
Yes.
Councilwoman Vaughn?
If the state
Yes.
doesn't approve it, then we have to.
So, I concur with Council President McBride, Vice President Caldwell Wilson, and Councilman Santiago Rodriguez. on the concerns of this budget as it is and the revenue resources that the administration has identified or has not solidified just yet are of a concern. And we cannot, I will not support an increase of that cap to 3.5% expense. I will not support that, Mr. Cruz. We cannot tax our way to fiscal prosperity in the city. The mayor has been in elected office for almost, this is the second cycle. And he had opportune time to go and broker or negotiate with the governor on different revenue sources. He has not, I just find it disingenuous that he is saying that he has met with Murphy to try to negotiate the increase in the statutory program, which is the capital city aid line item that Murphy signed into law last fiscal year, that guarantees by law that the city of Trenton gets a minimum of $10 million. So that is the route that the mayor should be traveling down at this juncture, and he should be working, he and the governor should be using that as an opportunity to make good and get us out of this whole transitional aid program that has historically, at least certainly under Murphy, has been minimum at best. I mean, $5 million from the state, and then this year, we hear that we're going to get $25 million when he only gave us $6 million and penalized us almost over $250,000. And then the mayor comes back and says, "Oh, we're going to get the same $25 million that he asked for last year and got denied by the governor." So why should the council believe now today that the $25 million that the mayor asked for last year he didn't get? He only got $5 million of it, and now this year we're supposed to believe that he's going to get the full $25 million.
Well, this is the thing that I'm perplexed with, is that the state only unfroze 114 million of the dollars that was frozen. Councilman Blakely, did you know the amount that was frozen? It was 200 and some odd million that was frozen. Can you look up and see just exactly what that number was?
Yes, ma'am.
So what has occurred is they only unfroze 114 million. So realistically, out of $114 million, we had one city ask for 40 million. We asked for 25 million. Remember, the state colleges that we sponsor, they get money out of the 114, and then the other municipalities that are under the MOU, they chip off of that 114 million. So I'm just saying to myself, mathematically, it's not adding up. How are we going to get 25 million out of 114? Another municipality asked for 40 million, and then you have all of the state colleges that's chipping off that same pot of money. It doesn't seem realistic to me. And then you say, you asked them for 25 million. I asked DCA, give me something in writing. Show me something. Show me something in writing that you are either going to give us that 25 million or a portion of it. But we got nothing back from DCA. And they said to us, we want you to introduce a budget, introduce and pass a realistic budget. That is in the letter that they sent addressed to the council president and the council members. So that tells me that we don't even need to be here in this room tonight because you brought $25 million to the table, and that is unrealistic.
So, as per the Treasury news release on October 17, 2019, according rather to Executive Order 73, only $53 million has been released on the transitional aid to localities line.
So it was 114 million released altogether?
Altogether, but only 53 million of the transitional aid to localities. So that's just a fact.
You know what, Councilman Blakely, now that really is blowing my mind. Because there's one municipality asking for 40 million, we're asking for 25, and you got
You're over.
8 more municipalities that's gonna,
You're over.
and now you're telling me, Councilman Blakely, that
Oh,
there's only
$53.
$53 million
That's what it says.
on the line item?
It says here, other aid includes Essex County SNAP administration, which is 6 million, the 20 million for the Essex County jail substance use disorder programs. No, I'm sorry, 200,000 rather. But the largest amount is 53 million. Yeah, I'm looking at it right here. 53 million from Executive Order 73 release, October 19th. Liz Moyo said, I am pleased that we are able to release a significant portion of the funding that has been placed into reserve this summer. We will continue to closely monitor revenue collections and additional savings initiatives booked in the budget and hope to be able to release additional funds as expeditiously as possible. In the interim, we have asked all state departments to continue to keep us apprised of any potential financial hardships on the horizon in relation to spending items placed in reserve.
Okay, so when you have the information in front of you, you have to act based on the numbers. And the numbers, they just don't align. They just don't align, Mr. Cruz. You know, if we approve that budget, meaning accept it this evening, the mayor put on there 100 police officers and 40 firefighters. And when that money doesn't come through, the council has the budget, and now everyone is looking to us saying, hey, you don't want to hire police officers. Hey, you don't want to hire firefighters.
I have a few questions. May I, President Brown?
Yes, you may, Councilor Blakely.
Thank you. So, last year you said we requested 25 million in the application, correct? Did we include $25 million in the budget last year?
I wasn't here for that, but yes.
So,
It was included.
No.
And
Why-
it was $6 million.
so
Not
Mr.
in the
Zelinski,
introduced.
can you talk about that? Is it
Not
required?
in the introduced, but it was part of, it was the application. But it was not included in the introduced.
So,
budget.
so to be clear, it's not required for the introduced budget to reflect the 25 million. Is that the case? So, wouldn't it be prudent, right, to introduce a budget that says, okay, we're gonna introduce a budget with an increase in transitional aid, say a 20% increase. And we introduce a budget to do that, and then we work within the parameters. But to introduce a budget bolstered by a more than 400% increase in transitional aid, when we're not mandated to do that, you see why we would be a little concerned about that? Why that would be a problem? That we're bolstering a budget with numbers that that we don't have any basis for the numbers. So why aren't we putting 100 million in? Why aren't we putting $1 billion in? Like, there has to be some rhyme or reason to the numbers you're placing in the budget. And the budget is, and this is what bothers me the most. The mayor went out to the Trentonians and said, we're gonna hire 100 new cops. That's just irresponsible. When he knows that we don't have any reason to think that we're gonna get a 400% increase in transitional aid. Like, I can understand budgeting an increase in transitional aid, but a 400% increase, that's irresponsible. And then my other point is, quite frankly, we shouldn't be asking for money for transitional aid anyway. We should be asking for that money to be in the Capital City Aid program. Fundamentally, asking for transitional aid continues DCA's authority over this city that I think is illegitimate. And so, if the mayor is going to ask for $25 million, the play should be for $25 million in capital city aid. Because if we get $25 million in transitional aid, we'll never get out of transitional aid, and we become superfluous as an elected body when we have Tina, who has this city under her thumb in DCA. And so, you know, I want to work with the administration, but it's just unfair to include $25 million when you don't have to. Like, why was $25 million included in this budget when it didn't have to be? We could have said 10 million, we could have said 8 million, we could have said 12 million. But 25 million, I mean, where's this number coming from? And if we, 25 million plus the capital city aid line item, that's a massive increase in state aid. And for what? Like, the city needs it, of course. But maybe you can help me understand, what's the mayor's rationale? What is he saying? Is he saying just give it to us because we deserve it? Because we've been deserving this money for years and they haven't done it. So does the mayor have like a pitch that, like, what is he going to do? What's his? Can you share his deliberations with the governor to say, you know, what he's going to present? Because here's the thing. Next week we're going to have a State of the City address. The mayor's going to get up there and he's going to say we're going to hire 100 new cops. When, quite frankly, if we don't include the $25 million in the budget, we may be talking about laying cops off. So why is he doing this? I don't understand it. And I was under the impression that you had to, if you applied for $25 million, you had to include it in the budget. That's not the case. So you can tackle any part of my comments. If I'm wrong, please show me the error of my ways. I'm open to being convinced.
Madam President, one of the things that the mayor has been doing since he came to office is actually have conversations with the governor's office, and that is why we were successful last year in getting $10 million set aside for from the governor for capital city aid to the city, which we all know is something that was taken away from us 10 years ago. We got $10 million. The goal is to eventually come and continue to lobby the governor and our representatives to believe in Trenton and also go back to the levels of the courtside administration in capital city aid that the city was receiving. To the point of the $25 million, as I mentioned earlier, we bolster our budget because we feel that that is exactly what is needed for the city to function as a normal city, which means bringing the levels of money received by the city from the state, bringing them back, as I mentioned, to the Forsyth administration years. One of the points you made is, why are we applying for $25 million for transitional aid if we are counting on hopefully getting money for capital city? The transitional aid application is actually a placeholder should the capital city aid does not come to fruition for the 2020 fiscal year for us. So that is should we receive capital city aid, a partial or a complete withdrawal of the application will take place.
Okay, so I have to get back to the agenda. The first thing on the agenda is the 19-70, which is the fiscal year 2020 and ordinance.
I have a question about the cap. What happens if we vote against this cap? From my understanding, we vote against the cap, then the budget is nil. Like you're gonna have to go back to put the budget under the constraints of the cap. Is that the case?
Yes, because we cannot spend above the 2%.
So we would have to, so if you say no to 1970, then,
You still have the 2% cap in place.
but the numbers that we received in this budget don't reflect the 2% cap. They're gonna have to go back and, start the process over to ensure that the budget is in the confines of the 2% cap. Is that correct?
Yes, the Director of Finance just mentioned to me that the 1.5% from the 2% cap, the additional to make it 3.5%, actually gives the city the ability to go $1.7 million above the 2%. 1.7 million.
Could you explain that, please?
To
It
spend.
generates additional cap bank of $1.7 million over what the $2 million would generate. Or the 2% would generate, I'm sorry.
Anything above that, then we'll have to get a waiver from DCA. Right? Anything above that.
Mr. Cruz?
Yes.
I don't think,
Okay, ordinance 1970, ordinance fiscal year 2020, an ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and establish a cap bank. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, roll call. Blakely?
Abstain.
Caldwell Wilson?
No.
Harrison?
Yes.
Mutual?
No.
Rodriguez?
No.
Vaughn?
No.
Maflahe?
No.
Fail.
The next resolution.
Next on the agenda is resolution 19556, resolution to approve the introduced budget for fiscal year 2020.
I thought this was to accept the budget, not to approve it.
Approval and acceptance means, it means the same thing in the budget language, I believe.
No, it doesn't.
you gotta do the introduce.
Approved it.
You have to approve the
It mean that we,
The
that
DCA
that
said in
we
the
would
letter,
take it,
introduce
introduce, and then the council approves, meaning the council accepts.
the introduction,
Just the introduction.
just the introduction.
That
That
is
just says
to
different.
That
approve
we will be,
introduced
that we will be,
budget.
that we will be taking the budget over.
Just wanna
That's
make
what
sure
that means, am I
we're-
correct, Mr. Cherry? If we say approve, that means that the council will accept this, and then it becomes our budget.
Yes, Madam President, this is not an adoption.
Right, it's just an approval that,
Okay,
It's an
Mr.
approval
Warner,
of
just wanna make
the,
sure.
of the,
This says resolution to approve the introduced budget. It should be resolution to approve introduction of the budget.
You'd like to change if we're gonna vote on it.
so the $25 million is in this budget, right? That you want us to accept.
Yes.
Could you tell me what page, the 100 cops are at? Are on?
What was your question?
That should be resolution to approve the introduction, not the introduced budget.
60, I'm sorry, 60, and there's 40 firefighters.
So you're approving.
45, right, you're right.
It means you're approving.
No, I haven't, not yet.
If you look in the section
So,
where the
Mr.
police,
Malone, Councilwoman Caldwell Wilson, I had a question for you, Colin Cherry might answer this.
So you wanna, what's your making
The
motion?
resolution to approve the introduction of the budget.
Of the budget,
for
yes.
fiscal year,
That's
not
right.
approve the introduced budget.
Correct, it should be amended.
They should be amended to say resolution to approve the introduction of the budget for the fiscal year.
I would agree.
Councilwoman, would you feel more comfortable if it's to accept the introduced budget?
No, we're accepting the introduction of the budget, not the we're not accepting the introduced budget. for accepting the introduction of it.
Mr. Miller gets the notice. So,
Yeah, I do, yes. So,
So that
Make a
was my
motion.
motion
Right.
to amend that.
right.
For a motion, or second
Okay.
Second.
Okay, motion to change the title of the resolution 19556 to read, resolution to approve the introduction of the FY year 2020 budget.
Yes.
Blakely,
Yes.
Caldwell-Wilson,
Yes.
Harrison, Musil,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
McBride.
Yes.
Okay, motion passed.
Okay, so now that we amended the title, now we need to vote on whether or not we are going to
So
accept this.
I'm looking here, it says 80 new hires in the budget on page 11, I'm sorry. In the police, it says 80 new hires.
And what page are you
I'm in the police section, it says police 11.
So 20 vacancies.
Yeah, it says 80 new hires and $1.2 million.
So it's so 20 were from the budget that just passed from that we had previous, and then add additional 60 to those. So it's 60 new.
60 new?
Yes. But in total it would be 80.
And this is just for training, right? This is, because it looks like the number, just doing quick math. So let me see.
That's actually basic. It's a partial calculation because yes, they will be higher next year, and so when they come into the academy, they are cheaper, and then as they move along, it's a partial budget.
So the issue that I have is it sustainable for
Right.
us to keep them on, right? Like, do we have enough money to keep these folks on? So it's one thing to have the $25 million to hire a new set of police officers, but if we don't have a concrete, if we don't have, what's going on here? Yeah.
Could you this?
Yeah, if we don't have a concrete funding stream, right, we're gonna just be in a position the next fiscal year of laying off folks we just hired if we don't have a dedicated stream to maintain, right? Like, can you shine some light on that, or the police director can shine a light on that fact?
Well, again, as we mentioned, I hope it will be soon that we hear something for the $25 million. Once we have the money, it will be sustainable to keep them.
How so?
Well, we make adjustments in the budget based on. No, not attrition will be one of the main vehicles, but then there are other needs that will not be in
Like
other
overtime.
departments as well, and so you adjust the budget accordingly from one department to the other.
So, Mr. Cruz, I'm back to the 53 million. So you want to introduce a budget to us with the $25 million in it. And now we know that there's only $53 million for all of the municipalities that are under the MOU. There's only one pot of money for everybody to subtract from. So I'm that's the piece that I'm concerned about, because there's nothing in writing. I asked DCA, give me something in writing here. Tell me what portion. And if the Department of Community Affairs continue their practice, every year they deduct. They deduct from the MOU every year. The year before was 9 million, and then last year was 6 million minus the 260,000. I don't expect to get a plus when.
Can I ask a question? In the application, doesn't it state that it's not, transitional aid is not meant to be a long-term solution. It's meant to be a temporary solution as a city gets its affairs in order, so that the point of, like, if transitional aid is working the way that it's supposed to be working, an increase in transitional aid would prove that it's a failure. Because the whole idea of transitional aid is to diminish the need to have the reforms on the municipal level, so that you don't need transitional aid because you have a functioning city that has good practices, right? And so is that a correct assumption of the transitional aid program?
Yes, well, I agree with your transitional aid portion. I disagree with how we should be cutting services to get to the zero number.
I think that's a different conversation. I think for me, that's a conversation for another day. The conversation I'm having is, the expectation is transitional aid is not meant to be increased every year. It's supposed to be diminished.
If I would say that if
well, let me say this. Let me frame it this
yeah.
way. It's definitely not meant to be increased by 400%. Like, it's definitely not meant to grow 4 or 5 times. It's supposed to be declining. But say if we quibble over that, it's not supposed to be increased dramatically. Could you agree with that?
I would disagree with that also.
Well, tell me how. Tell me why.
We have the right to apply for any amount that we feel is needed for us to operate as a normal municipality. Because the state is saying you only need $5 million, and next year we're going to cut some more and cut some more and cut some more. The city of Trenton is not a regular municipality that is not occupied by 40+% by state buildings.
But the difference is that's where you have capital city aid. That's why the capital city aid program exists, so that we get money based on our status as the state capital. But I want to read to you the actual the guidelines. I'm looking at it right here. I'm on the website for municipal state aid. If I want to read this, transitional aid. Give me 1 second. Okie dokie. Pardon me. Okay. I have it here. I'm trying to find the actual language where it basically says that it's meant to be declined.
Well, the actual process shows you
Yeah.
that, 1 year we were getting 16 million.
Oh, let me read you this. I got it here. It says, furthermore, of the 22 municipalities that successfully applied for transition aid in state fiscal year 2011, half have graduated the program and no longer need state funding to balance their budgets. In fact, 7 of the prior year recipients did not even bother to apply for funding in this most recent year. So when you're saying graduating, it's a sign of success when you don't need it anymore, right? And the idea of Trenton's unique situation, because of our situation with state property tax, state buildings, that the battle shouldn't be for applying for a program that you're not going to get an increase. We should be focusing rather, how do we marshal the political capital to get an increase in transitional, in capital city aid, and in capital city aid, and an elimination transitional aid.
Which is what we're working towards.
But you're not working towards it if you're introducing an application for 25 million.
Do the opposite.
As I mentioned, it's a placeholder. I mean, we can pull the application, but what if we don't get the capital city aid? We still need to have something, holding our spot to, for money that we will need for transitional aid if we don't get the capital city aid.
Right, you know, the transitional aid, when we sat in this room last year, Mr. Cruz, we had discussed how we could actually get out of the MOU altogether. We discussed using the revenue from the water department to get out of the MOU, because they only gave us $6 million. Our water department had the revenue in it. It was there. It was in reserve. And I just kept saying that, it's on record. Let us use the $6 million plus the 3 that the water department had given us the last year, which would bring us up to $9 million out of the water department, and let us get out of the MOU. But instead, the administration allowed the water department to spend the reserve and to spend in all of the money that we took in, the 16 million from our customers, the 27 million from our customers and the 16 million from our residents. They spent the reserve and they spent the incoming revenue. And we had $93 million in bonds sitting up there that could have been repurposed to do most of the upgrades in the water department and leave the preserves alone. So, you know, when you talk about being fiscally responsible, we have to look at how we're doing business here in this city. And we're never going to get our children out of debt if this practice continues. So, you know, we can just go ahead and move to vote for this resolution. The council people can vote for this. Councilman,
Let me just, I just want to make a comment here, because here we are counting again with $3,150,000 from waterworks. It's here for 2020, the same as last year, but if I'm not mistaken, a couple of minutes ago, we were told that was iffy. Because first, the assistant director told us that there was zero surplus. Then Mr. Pico said, or Mr. Cruz said no, that there were 9 million or 7 million or something like that.
9 million.
I don't know, we had 9 million, I don't know the details of that.
The surplus.
We never got,
As of June.
we never got any reports on that.
You did.
So, do we have the $3,150,000 from waterworks,
no,
Mr. Pico?
no, we don't. They have a shortfall.
Right.
So they can't give us $3
Well,
million
it's
because
here.
they have a shortfall.
It's here, that means it's 25 plus 3 is $28 million. We're short.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, yeah.
Councilman.
I'm sorry, President.
No, it's okay.
No, I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt you.
No, it says here that we are counting for 2020 for this budget, $3,150,000.
And how can we include that when they already told us that they have a shortfall
That's,
in the water
if I'm not
department?
mistaken, that's what I heard.
There's no shortfall.
That wasn't sure if we were gonna get that amount or not that amount.
Councilman Blakely.
Yeah, so, Mr.
I think
Pico, I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Pico wants
Mr. Pico has something.
Yeah, I think when I last addressed the council, I said that we were gonna, I can't answer your specific question. All I can tell you is this, that this budget includes an element from the water department, where we haven't finished our budgeting yet. I told you when I first appeared in front of you that I was gonna reassess all the bonds. We were gonna try to repurpose as much as we can. We're in the middle of that. I'm having a meeting tomorrow tomorrow morning on the results of that. But I will be before you during this budget process. I mean, what you have in front of you, you're just gonna start all this resolution means, I think, is you're gonna take this budget in, and it's clear that you don't like lots of elements in the budget. Once you take it in, you can accept it, redud it, cut it, do what you will with it.
Once we take it in, we're responsible
We're
for
responsible
all
for it like
that the
last
mayor
year.
said he
Like
was
last
going to
year.
do. So, no, we understand exactly what we're
Okay,
doing.
but as to
They
the
don't-
water, I will be in front of you with a specific budget amendment for the water department budget.
So the whole idea is this, our main problem, I
Generate
think,
debt surplus.
I'm sorry, are you done, Mr. Pico?
Yeah,
No, you
yeah.
Thank you. That's why I asked him. So, the fundamental issue is this, the $25 million. Is that a number that is a prudent number to include in the budget? And when you look at the application for the transitional aid, section VC is titled Actions to Reduce Future Need for Aid. And it says, detail the steps the municipality is taking to reduce the need for future aid. Include details about shared services and consolidation, long-term cost cutting and enhanced revenue plans, impact of new development, potential for grants to offset costs, and estimated short and long-term annual savings. I'm interested in knowing what was in that application last year and what's in the application this year. Can you explain to me the actions that the mayor is going to take to reduce the future need for aid?
So what you have in front of you is actually goals. They ask you for what is it that what are you looking for to improve your budget, and that is what we are saying that we are going to continue to work on.
So, yeah, so do you have a plan in here other than the number? Because it says here, as examples of the actions to reduce future need for aid, one is efforts to bring economic development in the municipality.
Yes.
A plan to constrain or reduce staffing costs through collective negotiation, attrition, consolidation, restructuring, and other personnel actions. A plan to eliminate, reduce, or constrain the cost of non-essential services and activities. A plan to maximize reoccurring revenues, including as appropriate, updating fees, fines, and penalties, maximizing enforcement of delinquencies, and selling surplus land and property. And a plan to address findings contained in various audits, investigations, and reports with respect to the municipality, including municipal audits, applicable state controller and state auditor reports and audits, federal program audits, and other audits as identified for the director. Is any of that in here? Or have you included that in your application from last year and this year?
It is in there, right?
Where?
College Area Department of Administration.
Yes, go right ahead.
The application that we submitted for transition aid both last year and this year does include items. Unfortunately, I don't have the application in front of me, so I apologize if I leave something out. But that is a section of the application that I worked on heavily. Some of the successes we've seen already are, I'm sure all of council have seen the new parking kiosks that we've installed. Those have actually been a substantial amount of revenue that we generated in this fiscal year, even though we were able to award the contracts and begin the work during the last fiscal year. We started to see those revenues come into this fiscal year, and it is our hope that compared to a collection rate of approximately $100,000 during the last fiscal year from the single space meters, our kiosks have already seen $100,000 in just over 2 months of operation.
We did not project parking.
We have submitted plans to enforce the parking surcharge, which is an ordinance that was passed many years ago by City Council, but unfortunately has laid unacted on, and we intend to act on that, which we believe will generate a substantial amount of revenue. We have looked at positions which we don't feel we need to fill. We have looked at cost cutting and grant generating measures where we can. We have entered into new and renewed shared service agreements, including having our communications for 911 handled by the county. We have recycling handled by the county as well. The Department of Housing and Economic Development has been working on new development, and we've been looking at some technological solutions, including, I don't know if any of you have experienced this personally yet, but our inspections department has moved over to a software system called GovPilot, which has actually allowed our inspectors, prior to the implementation of that system, which was just rolled out within the last year, an inspector, when they performed an inspection, actually had to drive back to City Hall in order to input all of the data and implement the change in our system. Now they actually are able to not only print summonses, but they can also update the information from the field. So we have substantially increased the number of inspections that individual inspectors can do, which has been a huge boon to clearing out the backlog without the need for adding additional staff.
And that's all well, I'm glad to hear that, that's fantastic. But the whole idea of transitional aid is to reduce the need, so that those reforms will reduce the need for transitional aid, and instead of not even moderately increasing the need for transitional aid, what this budget does is puts the pedal to the metal for the need for transitional aid and increases it by 400%. And I think we should take a vote. I'm sorry. Thank you.
So, Venus, do you want to read the version, please?
Okay, resolution of, as amended, 19556 would read, resolution to approve the introduction of the fiscal year 2020 budget. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call Blakely,
Abstain.
Caldwell Wilson,
I'm going to accept this with a statement. I'm going to accept this budget, but I want it on record, and I hope DCA hears it. This is not the budget that the council's going to end up with. We're going to have budget meetings, and I would certainly put it on record that I would appreciate it if we cut back on this budget, that the mayor doesn't come out and attack us and assault us and say that it's our fault that we're not having more cops, it's our fault that we can't do this, and it's our fault that we can't do that. I will not accept that responsibility from the mayor, because as far as I'm concerned, this is an irresponsible budget that was given to us, but I will accept it, yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Mushu,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
No.
Vaughn,
I just want to say something. When Mayor Reed Gusciora came into office last year in 2018, he expected the MOU to be lifted. And it didn't happen because the governor vetoed the line item and kept Trenton under the MOU. So I'm just bewildered. I'm just don't understand, 12 plus months later, and Mayor Reed Gusciora has now wants to increase our dependency and continue to perpetuate this obligation, this oversight that should not be perpetual, but it appears to be. An MOU or any type of regulatory oversight should have an end date. And we don't have an end date. So this is an agreement. This is a memo of understanding between two parties that's supposed to have an end. What agreement do two entities enter without an end date that is perpetual? So I'm not interested in continuing to be under the MOU, as the mayor had no interest, when he came into office. And I don't know, I really don't understand why we would even consider such oversight. It's been restrictive, it's been punishing, it's been crippling, and it's time for us to move on, and it's time for the mayor to really sit down with the governor to increase the statutory capital city aid that this city deserves, considering all the tax exempt buildings that's sitting here in our borders. And for us to sit as a council, I think that we should send a resounding message to the state that we have no interest in this program and no interest in their oversight, and that we are a sovereign government that can manage our own business. So I'm gonna vote no.
I'm gonna change my vote to yes.
Councilwoman Squad?
I would just like to make a statement. My statement is that the Department of Community Affairs sent a letter to the council president and the council. And in their letter, it stated that the council needed to introduce and pass a realistic budget. There is no way that the administration can give me a budget with $25 million in it from the Department of Community Affairs under the transitional aid, and I accept it. That is unrealistic. The numbers should reflect what we're actually going to get. It should at least reflect a close proximity of what we're going to get. Because at the end of the day, when we accept this budget and you come back and he stands up on November the 7th and say, oh, I'm hiring 100 police officers, I'm hiring 40 firefighters, this budget will be the council's, and in order for us to get those numbers down, we will be the ones that's left holding unfactual information. We'll be the ones holding the bag for the mayor, and I am not going to hold the bag for him. He should have been more precise in the numbers. He should not have asked for $25 million from any organization, Mr. Cherry speaks on the kiosk. That was what they produced to us last year. You can't keep using the same thing, saying that it generates revenue. You used that in the last budget. Now you're back here with this budget saying that, oh, we got the kiosks. I sat here, I said, listen, administration, we have $5 million outstanding in the police department. Let's go after that. We have hundreds of thousands of dollars with nonprofit organizations. Let's go after that money that's owed to the water department. We have a towing company, we have a towing industry that monopolizes the industry. We should be getting part of that. We're getting titles, and we're turning the titles over to the towing industry. We don't even have a record of what their revenue is. And we give them the titles, we pay for it, the taxpayers pays for it. There is no reason that we're sitting here with our hand out to the state because the people don't want to do their job. No, it's an insult. My vote is no, and I think that the mayor needs to do better. And I'm telling all of you and my colleagues, I will not take the weight for the mayor not doing a better job. I will not do it.
So, I'm gonna change my vote and tell you why. I'm gonna tell you why. Listen, I think that I agree with all that everyone is saying around this budget being irresponsible, right? I agree. I think that, however, based on what happened last year and what's happening this year, the mayor's budget is a start. There's nothing that stops us from taking it and being responsible. His irresponsibility doesn't mean that we have to be irresponsible. We're going to get fines probably for not introducing a budget in a timely manner. The budget should have been introduced weeks ago, and the deadline is coming up. And so I think that, you know, this is not the best situation to be in. I disagree with what the mayor is presenting, but that's why we're here to fix the budget and have a responsible budget. what the mayor is submitting is his desire, comes to us, we can then do the right thing and, bring fiscal sanity. I don't want the process to be delayed any more than it already has been. We need to start, and I think that not accepting this budget is just going to further extend the start of council being responsible. So for that reason, even though I'm not happy with it, I think we need to get started, so I'm gonna say yes.
Okay, if that, resolution 19556 passed with a majority vote.
Well, don't you need 5?
No.
That's
Right.
what-
Resolution, yes, gotcha, yes, gotcha.
Okay. Next on the agenda is resolution 19572, resolution authorizing the award of contract with the law firm Office of Willits, Goldman and Spitzer for Woodbridge Center in Woodbridge, New Jersey, to provide professional legal services regarding redevelopment matters through a fair and open process.
I want to walk on the amended version of this ordinance.
Ms. Morelli, do you want to read the
Yes.
amendment?
The first whereas clause should say, whereas the city of Trenton has a need for professional legal services to support the efforts of city council in redevelopment matters for the city of Trenton.
Motion to revise. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call Blakely,
Yes.
Caldwell Wilson,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Mushu,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
McBride.
Yes.
Okay, so is there a motion to adopt the resolution 19572 with revisions?
So moved.
Second.
Blakely,
Yes.
Caldwell Wilson,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Mushu,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
McBride.
Yes.
Okay, pass.
Where's the other resolution?
I gave you the
This is a resolution that Mr. Delias wants to walk on. It's a resolution authorizing the award of a contract with the law office of Genova Burns LLC, 494 Broad Street, Newark, New Jersey, to provide professional legal services regarding redevelopment matters through the fair and open process in accordance with New Jersey state statute. This is for the Housing and Economic Department to also have an attorney to represent them. So I make a motion to walk it on.
Second.
Okay, to walk resolution 19574,
This would be it would be number 574.
Blakely,
Yes.
Caldwell Wilson,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Mushu,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
to adopt the resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Blakely,
Yes.
Caldwell Wilson,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Mushu,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
McBride.
Yes. Yes. I would like to make a motion to walk on resolution 19-573, a resolution in support of the council president not signing the transitional aid application. Did anybody get this? Did everybody get this? Something to think about.
R-73.
Did everyone get
I didn't get
a
it.
copy of this? You should have it.
Oh,
I didn't get it. I was gonna
I had put it out there.
So I'm making a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
a motion to walk on resolution 573. Okay, resolution in support of council president not signing the transitional aid application. Blakely,
Abstain.
Caldwell Wilson,
Yes.
Harrison,
No.
Mutual,
George,
No.
who's to put it on? No.
Not to put it, I don't want it on.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Vaughn,
I support it, so you're not gonna sign it, right?
This is for me to walk it on.
Oh,
So
yes,
you either
yes.
want me to walk it on?
Yes, yes, yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's okay, you're confusing it, what you came out. You can walk it on, yes.
yes,
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Yes, I changed my vote on that. Yeah.
Okay.
I was going back
McBride?
and forth with this. No.
You don't wanna walk it on? I'll
Yes.
make a motion.
Okay, no, I'm good with that. I'm good with that.
Resolution, okay. Is there a motion to adopt resolution 19573?
So moved.
Second.
Blakely,
Come back to me.
Caldwell Wilson,
Yes.
Harrison,
No.
Mutual,
No.
Rodriguez,
No.
No.
Vaughn, McBride,
Yeah, come
So
back.
I mean,
yeah, so the question is, do you support?
this one is to adopt it.
Well,
Who did
but
the
then
walk
okay,
on?
I'm sorry, I want to change my vote.
Oh my
I-
God.
This is confusing.
Okay, I'm gonna,
We
Can
started.
we do another roll call?
yes, I will.
This is to adopt it, and not
So this
signing.
one was to put it on, and this one is
Adoption.
adoption.
Okay,
I don't want her to sign it.
Yes.
I don't want her to sign it.
okay.
We're talking about
So it's a yes
If you want to,
if you want it, if you
Adopt the
if you want to adopt it. It's a no if
you know,
you don't want to adopt it.
Okay. A motion by,
just so I'm clear,
McBride.
no, if you don't want to adopt it and you're not gonna, and you're gonna sign it. If we don't adopt this, she will sign it.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Motion by Kathy McBride, is there a second?
Ms. Michelle said-
Thank you.
If it's a yes,
So you're supported.
you're not gonna sign,
Not
right?
signed. That's what she said.
Right.
Okay. Blake-
Very good,
Blakely,
thank you.
Come back to me.
Caldwell Wilson,
yes.
Harrison,
No.
Mutual,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Yes.
McBride.
Yes.
No.
Resolution 19573 passed. Okay.
So let me just be clear with everybody in this room about what just occurred, because I don't think they understand. So let me bring some clarity to what just occurred. That resolution just said that I am not going to sign the MOU. I'm not going to
For
sign
the
it.
transitional aid application. But I have a question.
Okay, so you know this time.
Oh, so-
So it doesn't matter now.
Yeah, I know,
It's a-
I'm just saying,
okay.
and I think that the administration kind of, I think that President McBride would have been fine signing if it was 8 million or 9 million. The fact that you guys requested 25 million and included it in their budget, that's your fault. It ain't ours. That was a bad idea. Whoever thought about that, that wasn't a good one.
Okay, so just so everybody is clear on what just transpired, I just wanted to,
No, we just public comments.
it doesn't go through. Okay, so, public, this session, this part of it is open for public comment based on the budget, based on the two attorneys, and based on the the president signing the MOU, so,
Does anyone wish to
if anybody.
speak? Close public comment?
Motion to close.
Second.
So we're not gonna do a civic comment this evening, motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Shakira, before we adjourn, there was a doctor's office closed on West State Street, Dr. Dalabani, but he did not leave any of his patients with their medical charts, and the health center is going like crazy trying to find out where these medical charts are. So something has to occur here. He didn't log into the universal system with the shot records. The health center doesn't have they don't know what to do. They don't have,